flags have been flying at half-mast across Europe as tributes pour in following the death of David Sassoli. The Italian politician and president of the European Parliament has been described as a man of deep faith and strong convictions. He's also been hailed as a champion of justice and solidarity. Christopher Pitchers reports from Brussels.
A passionate European and sincere Democrat. Just some of the words used to describe European Parliament President David Sassoli, who died on Tuesday at the age of 65. The Italian-born MEP had been hospitalised in Italy for more than 2 weeks now, dying of a serious complication related to his immune system. He'd been battling serious illness, including pneumonia, since September last year. Outside the European Parliament in Brussels, a minute's silence was held for the former journalist and television news anchor. Many will remember Sassoli for guiding the EU institution through the coronavirus pandemic, forcing him and the Parliament administration to devise unprecedented remote working methods.
David will be remembered as a very important president for this institution because he was able to keep the Parliament active and relevant and determining in a very, very difficult phase for Europe.
Il Presidente!
Perhaps his greatest achievement during his 2.5-year tenure is helping to steer negotiations over the EU's long-term budget. This paved the way for the establishment of a €1.8 trillion fund, which included the bloc's historic pandemic recovery package. The job now falls to the Parliament's Vice President from Malta, Roberta Metsola, who is almost certain to be elected to his position by MEPs in next week's presidential election. Italy's gone but not forgotten socialist champion leaves behind a wife and 2 children and will long be remembered as both a journalist and politician. Christopher Pitchers, Euronews, Brussels.
Well, for more on this, let's cross over to Brussels and our correspondent, Shona Murray. Shona, tributes have been pouring in throughout the day. What have people been saying?
Well, very much the sentiment here in Brussels, as we heard from Chris's package there, was that David Sassoli was a committed humanitarian, someone who fought for justice and fairness, not just as President of the European Parliament or an MEP, but also as earlier career as a journalist. And we see the book of condolences here in the Parliament is almost filled. Some of the commentary and the messages from Roberta Metsola, an MEP who's going to be acting President of the European Parliament, saying that the Parliament has lost one of its own today. And I think that's very much echoed across Brussels. And we also caught up with Frans Timmermans, first Vice President of the European Commission, who spoke to us about his friend, David Sassoli.
Everybody says he was a kind man. He was a warm man. And I have to say, this day and age of politics being so rough and confrontations being everywhere and everybody being quite harsh in their comments, this kind, considerate man was a real leader. He was a bridge builder. He was a consensus builder. He always saw the good in people rather than what they lacked. And I believe he's one of the very few leaders in Europe that had this profound humanity on a plate all the time.
David Sassoli was an MEP from 2009 and a President of the Parliament from 2019. What impact do you think he had on politics in Brussels?
I think the first thing that will come to mind, Rue, of course, is the fact that he was able to keep the European Parliament functioning at a time of the pandemic when no MEPs across Europe were really supposed to move, or at least it wasn't something it was something that was warned against. He managed from a technical point of view to ensure that very consequential debates and votes took place in the Parliament, if you remember, around the rule of law, around migration, and crucially, the debate and the votes around the EU's recovery fund. The EU's recovery fund of €750 billion was something that David Sassoli very much supported and was on the side of, given especially his own fellow citizens in Italy were suffering so much because of the coronavirus. He also gave a really important speech during the summer in June 2021 about having an EU or a European humane approach to migration and refugees. And he was someone who took a strong, hard line when it came to breaches of the rule of law. He said before that member states that breach EU rule of law and values shouldn't receive EU's money. So I think he will be very much missed by progressive MEPs and committed Europeans alike.